Association, or NECSEMA, that's the acronym. And we're going to talk a little bit about some communities that have been looking at banning sales of nicotine products, or certain nicotine products, or things that will help adult smokers who are looking to wean their way off. This is my limited understanding. That's why we have this expert. Peter Brennan is our guest. Peter, welcome to Monday Night Talk, and thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Let's start off. I hope you had great holidays.
Oh, yeah, it was magical. You know, good time with the family. Looking forward to 2026 and great things ahead.
Yeah. What is it? Tell me a little bit about what it is that your organization does, the New England Convenience Store and Energy Marketers Association. That's a mouthful.
Sure, Kevin. I can walk through that. I apologize. I do a little bit of a holiday cold here, so bear with me. But so, you know, the acronym is NECSEMA. That's the New England Convenience Store and Energy Marketers Association. We represent the interests of the 9,000 convenience stores, gas stations, fuel wholesalers, vendors throughout New England. In Massachusetts, we have 4 convenience stores. As of last year, 4,421. So they make up kind of just about half of the total number of stores in New England. And we engage on all issues that impact our small businesses. You know, we are essential businesses. As you might recall, we were open during COVID. We, valuable members of the community, provide everybody with their transportation fuels, you know, snacks, hot meals, anything you could want is what we try to carry. Anything that the traveling public would like in a store is what we aim to have at our stores.
Now, prior to this particular item that we're going to talk a little bit about, what are some of the issues that your organization has had to deal with over the years? You mentioned COVID is another great one. Yeah,
so during COVID, you know, we were involved in the reopening process and being deemed essential. You know, we've had a lot of issues on the taxing of transportation fuels, taxing of snacks, you know, drinks, bans of certain products. You had in the nicotine space, a few years ago, they banned all flavored nicotine in Massachusetts. So that really arose out of, there was kind of a panic about vaping. It turned out to be illegal marijuana vapes that were causing the issues, but they still decided to ban all flavors because of this vaping epidemic. So now what you have is no, you know, menthol cigarettes, no flavored vapes, no flavored nicotine pouches, dip, etc. So that fight happened before I was here, but we're still dealing with the fallout of that. What you've seen is primarily hundreds of millions of dollars going to New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and just our stores having less product to sell. So there's never a dull moment. You know, there's always something going on in that space. We're consumer facing. We deal with the public every day, and we're the first point of contact when people aren't happy about these new policies that go into effect. So we get a lot of feedback at our stores.
So if you can explain to me in your own words, what's the Stoughton and Avon Boards of Health recently voted in order to restrict or ban these terms of these nicotine products? If you could kind of help set the record straight about what these policies actually do.
This is this is a complicated issue. So I'll just give you the whole history.
Yes, please.
There is this policy. So after, and it does relate to the ban on flavored nicotine, because since that's already in effect, and we're one of only 2 states that has that. California did it recently as well. But since they've already banned flavored nicotine, these advocates, they work for tobacco control organizations. They're funded by federal government, the state government, private donors, etc. But I'm just trying to lay the groundwork. They're very well-funded organizations that are now pushing a new policy because they've already banned flavors. they get paid to ban things. The next thing they want to do is ban adults from purchasing any type of nicotine product. And the way they want to do this is to create a generational nicotine ban. The way that works is if you're born after a certain date, the policies being pushed now are, January 1, 2005 or 2006. Originally, when Brookline was the first one to enact this policy, I believe their first bylaw was like January 1, 2000. So if you're born after that date, you can never legally purchase any nicotine product in that municipality. Brookline passed that bylaw through town meeting. It was challenged in court because the state had already set a state law that the legal age to purchase nicotine products was 21. This obviously went above and beyond that. The Supreme Judicial Court ruled that the bylaw was legal. It was constitutional. It was allowed to stay. And since that time, proponents of this generational nicotine ban have gone to other local boards, and primarily through the Board of Health, and we can get into that. But essentially, they're shopping this around, and they're making presentations, and they're saying everybody should do what Brookline did. It's great. It's going to reduce, youth nicotine usage. And when you look at what it actually does, it really doesn't target youths at all. The only argument, so it's a generational ban. It's, once you're 10 years in, you'll have a group of people that were, born after this date. They can never, you'll have now 10 years of new people that cannot purchase nicotine products legally. So you'll have 31-year-olds in that town that can't purchase any nicotine products. And the only argument that they can make for this policy is that, well, if, right now it's possible that a 21-year-old could be purchasing nicotine products for, say, a high school student, 17-year-old. I'd say it's generally unlikely. In my experience, we're too busy trying to get the 21-year-olds to buy us beer, and that's going to remain completely legal, but whatever, it could happen. And they say that, so as you keep pushing that out, then eventually this will just be phased out, and people just won't use nicotine products anymore. There won't be a market for that. I would disagree. I think that if you look at the flavor ban, and you can track every, say, pack of menthol cigarettes that used to be bought in Massachusetts is now bought in New Hampshire, and you have well-reported, incidences where people are selling flavored products in the illicit market in Massachusetts.
Right.
The Illegal Tobacco Task Force puts out a report on this every year. It's gone up exponentially every year. You haven't actually reduced demand for that product. You've just taken it outside of the legal retail channel. So now what you have is a thriving illicit market, no tax revenue, and fewer resources to put towards education and, ideas that actually work. So, but they push. So, excuse me.
Bless you.
So what these local advocates, and they travel around, and they go to these local health boards. And local health boards are generally between 3 and 5 people. The majority of the time they are appointed, not elected. They do not answer to the town. They have received, there are court cases that give local health board pretty wide authority. So one thing they do is they regulate nicotine products. And generally that's fine, because say if, you have a store in town, they need a license to sell nicotine products, they go to the health board. Okay, if they violate the terms of that license by selling to somebody underage, then they get pretty hefty fines. They can lose their license, and that's good. The system works. Our retailers have extremely high compliance rates. It's much safer to have these products behind the counter at our stores than it is to have them in the illicit market. So we appreciate that type of regulation. Where they're going astray, in my opinion, is these local health boards have now, at the urging of these advocates that travel around giving presentations to every local health board, they're now taking on what they want to see is a statewide policy, and that's this Nicotine Free Generation policy that would eventually prohibit any adult from purchasing nicotine in the state. So they go around, they make presentations. The board, you might only need 2 votes on the board. You might only need 3 votes. You just need a couple like-minded individuals to support your position on this, and then there's really nothing the citizens of that town can do about it. So a good example of the local issue in play is Stoughton. Stoughton had a hearing a couple weeks ago, December 18th.
Yep.
I attended in person. There were dozens of members of the community there, all in opposition to this. The Board of Health they said they received, countless emails, letters, contacts on this. I don't know the totals. I would imagine, I know because we helped gather some of those, that there were probably in the hundreds of people that weighed in opposition, all residents of the town. Because when people learn about this policy, they think it's stupid. They say, why would you prevent adults from purchasing nicotine products and do it under the guise of, youth safety? This isn't going to reduce youth consumption, youth usage. This is just going to inconvenience adults. It's going to put your retailers out of business if they do a healthy amount of sales in nicotine products, as some do. And as I explained, at our stores, if you can't get, say you want cigarettes, vape, nicotine pouches, and you're used to coming to one of our stores to do it, you're also getting all your gas there. You're buying your eggs, milk, lottery tickets, everything else. If now that product is no longer able to be sold legally at your store, then that same customer is going to go to the next town over, and you lose the entire basket of goods.
Right.
And also, from the business owner's perspective, you might have your life's work involved in this business, and then a local board can just pass a bylaw that instantly devalues that investment, because now when you look ahead, you have to at some point just put an X through all of your in-store revenue that was derived from the sale of nicotine products, because those are going to be illegal.
Right.
So it's enormously concerning. But back to Stoughton. The only people there in support were from other towns. They travel around. I see them at every hearing. They go on the road and they try to push this policy. They think it's a great idea. They're from, I think, Newton, Brookline. They bring a high school student from Needham. And they just say that, listen, tobacco is bad. It has bad health impacts. Smoking can lead to illness and death. And we don't necessarily, fight any of that information, but I think people know that. People know that long-term heavy usage of cigarettes has negative health impacts. That's no reason to tell a 21-year-old they can't consume something that is at this moment legal.
Right.
So, especially when you think about, marijuana, alcohol, if you're just going to say that people can only buy things that are healthy for them, then who's the arbiter of that? And it seems that these local health boards think that they should now tell people what they can and can't consume, what is and isn't healthy.
If I could jump in here, Peter, if I could jump in real quick, because I wanted to ask a quick question here. And again, if you're just tuning into our conversation, we got Peter Brennan. He is the executive director of NECSEMA. This is the New England Convenience Store and Energy Marketers Association. And this is about a push to ban nicotine sales, generational, where they put a date on it. I have to ask you this. Stoughton and Avon are kind of the outer fringes of our listening area. Have there been conversations down here in the South Shore, down towards Plymouth, somewhere around Marshfield? And the other question I will ask you is, do you not fear for you, not only yourself, but not only for your organization, but for your membership, that this could end up being a ballot initiative? If this is something that's being pushed on a local level, if they were to take it to the next level, what are your thoughts in regards to a ballot initiative?
So I'll address each part of that. There have been hearings on the South Shore.
Okay.
I know Plymouth, there was a hearing in Plymouth. They decided not to pursue the Nicotine Free Generation. They did look at capping the strengths of nicotine pouches. So, yeah, listen, these advocates are pushing it everywhere. They're pushing it on the Cape. They're pushing it in Metro West. They're pushing it out in Amherst, Pittsfield. It's been rejected. Whenever voters have had a say on this, it's been rejected. So at Bellingham, this actually went before the town meeting, and it was rejected 110 to 70. People thought it was just entirely ridiculous and couldn't get rid of it fast enough. In Manchester by the Sea, the local Board of Health passed this measure. Citizens then put up a measure at town meeting to tell the board to repeal it, and that passed. But the board has refused to repeal the measure because they say that, they're the Board of Health, they're the experts. What they say goes. They're not listening to the residents. So, yeah, in Plymouth, we had really good public outcry against this, and the board listens. In Stoughton, in my opinion, the board seems inclined to go along with this. And frankly, I think that might have something to do with, two members of the Board of Health in Stoughton, including the chair, work for the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. Massachusetts Department of Public Health funds these anti-tobacco organizations with grant money. At the very least, I think they should recuse themselves because there's a clear conflict here, but they don't seem inclined to do so. And again, if you're thinking about only a 5-member board, you only need 3 votes. So it's really, the whole process is entirely rigged against the opposition here. When people hear about this, they don't like it. But if you have a very small audience of, people that want to impress these mass association of health board people and local tobacco control people, then you might have an easier time getting your 3 to 5 votes there. And in terms of ballot question, I don't know that either side is really looking at that. This came up in the state already. The same advocates had a representative from Brookline file a bill that would make Nicotine Free Generation a statewide policy. That did not get a very warm reception at the committee level. It's already been sent to a study order, which means it's effectively dead for the year.
Okay.
So that's kind of, you can make one argument in a local health board where it's a group of, say, allies, but when you have to bring this to a wider audience, there are a lot of holes in the arguments that this policy does anything. All it's going to do is, again, create a robust illicit market and disenfranchise our retailers at what benefit? None.
Well, it seems like a lot of work on your end where you have to, be proactive and know when there's going to be yet another Board of Health hearing to bring forth this item.
Kevin, it's ridiculous because the law says they need to post their hearing agendas within 48 hours or with at least 48 hours notice.
Yeah, open meeting. Yep.
Many will do it maybe exactly 48 hours. Many will post the agenda but leave it so intentionally vague that they might take up anything. It could just say like tobacco regulations instead of say we are considering Nicotine Free Generation. And there was never any notice to the public. If it wasn't for our organization getting the word out that these hearings were going on, people would never know about it. And that's by design, because when this policy sees the light of day, it doesn't make any sense. People hate it. But if you can get into a local health board and try to pass it before anybody knows about it, then you might have success.
Well, we have about less than 5 minutes left, and I want to ask you, let you respond. Do you see an opportunity for compromise, such as restrictions on youth access without a complete local ban on adult sales? And what would your message be to not only your members but to the public who are hearing about this issue maybe for the first time?
Well, I encourage people to be wary, get involved. You don't have to use nicotine to care about this issue because, I'm not a smoker. I don't use nicotine. But, yeah, every now and then I might like a cigar. And people don't realize, they think that, Nicotine Free Generation, all right, smoking's bad. It's not just smoking. It's vapes and nicotine pouches that people use to quit smoking. That's also gone. Cigars, also gone. You're going to have, should this pass, in these cities and towns where it's already passed, if it's not overturned, then you're going to have a situation where you're going to have 35-year-olds that can't legally purchase any type of nicotine product in this town, while, say, a 34-year-old born the year before will be able to. So you'll have two different classes of adults with different rights. If you care about this, I would encourage you to get involved on the state level. There is a bill. It's essentially the legal age of purchase bill, and that would essentially invalidate all of these local Board of Health policies. It would clarify that the legal age to purchase alcohol, marijuana, tobacco is 21. So I would support that. That is still in committee. Those bill numbers are House 330 and Senate 221. If you want to contact the committee and support those, then we would just have a straight, standard of 21 years old being the legal age to purchase age-restricted products. We think that makes a lot of sense. We think the great majority of people in the state think that makes a lot of sense. And that's basically what the law has been until all these local health boards started taking actions against nicotine.
And do you have a website for if folks want to, this is, piqued their interest, they want to follow this maybe a little bit more closely?
We do. So our organization started kind of a subgroup that just deals with these policies, and it's called Citizens for Adult Choice. And the website is citizensforadultchoice.com. And if you go to that, you can get a list of the upcoming hearings, press, and ways to contact your legislators on the statewide bills. Or if there's a local action near you, there's going to be a way to contact your local representatives too. So yeah, if you want to get involved, I would encourage you. This is, it's a scary issue. If they can take away these rights, they're not going to stop there. Because as I mentioned at the very beginning, they passed the flavored ban, banning all flavored nicotine. They're only doing this because this is the last, they've run out of everything else. They've already banned everything else they can ban. So, okay, once you ban all nicotine products, then what are you going to ban after that? Are we going to go after fatty foods, salt, sugar, soda? The list just goes on and on. If we're now saying you can only buy products that we, a local health board, deems healthy, then what are we going to be left with? What's healthy for me might not be healthy for somebody else.
Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us and making my listeners aware. And I would love to have you back on in 2026 when we have updates. You feel that there's a need to get more word out in regards to this situation, whether this is something that spreads and is a greater conversation, or if there's some kind of resolution or compromise to it.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate your interest and your time, and I'd be honored to come back anytime. So wish you and your listeners a very happy start to 2026. Amen.
There he is. Peter Brennan, Executive Director of the New England Convenience Store Energy Marketers Association, NECSEMA. He's been our guest. So we're going to step aside, and when we come back, the final